Hello, this is Catherine at I Know I Need to Stop Talking. How are we all? It is Saturday. It's a wild and woolly Saturday, right? It's a really wild and woolly Saturday. I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody's keeping safe. Strange times as always, as we've said on every podcast since. This is my 10th podcast. That's very exciting, isn't it? 10 podcasts. I'm easily distracted, so sticking to 10 podcasts for me is quite an achievement. In fact, I think when I first started my blog, I thought that I would be doing well if I managed to keep it up for a year. 11 years later, there we go. It's practically my longest relationship ever. Apart from, of course, the lovely Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking. Goodness me, he puts up with a lot. But yes, I hope everybody's doing okay. Thank you as always for all your support with these podcasts and my random little initiatives. I appreciate last week's podcast was a little bit shorter than usual, and I feel that I should explain the reasons why. So here I am sat at my dining room table, which is where I record my podcasts. It's as abject fucking chaos in here as ever. I mean, literally, maybe this is a regular podcast feature. Maybe I could do what's on my dining room table this week. This week, from my vantage point, I can see a BB-8 Star Wars nightlight. Literally don't even know why we have this. We have nobody who needs a nightlight, but there he is sitting on my table. I have a plush stuffed toy crab. There's a story behind that, but I think it's one of those you had to be there. So that's sitting there. The slightly kinky looking leather fly swats are still on the table. There's a toilet roll because goodness knows that's what I need at the dining room table is a toilet roll. Literally not a fucking clue. There's a feather. There's a bottle of mouthwash. And there's a bag full of lavender from my mother-in-law's garden. So don't ever let it be said that I don't have an eclectic dining room table. Maybe we could do guesses for next week. What will we find on Catherine's dining room table? It's a big pile of shite. Catchy, very catchy. There's a reason I've never hit the charts. Anyway, I digress as per ever. So last week I was sat here recording this. And outside, slightly early, not that I'm complaining, lovely to have an early supermarket delivery, pulled up my Ocado driver. And so I thought, okay, well, I'd probably kind of better wind up. I was thinking, well, it's okay because Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking is here and the kids, so they can probably go out and get the food. And then all hell started breaking out from my hallway. So I rapidly ended the podcast, which, as I say, is why you were a little bit shortchanged last week. And I went out into the hallway and Jamie's killing himself laughing. And I'm like, what's happened? What's up? He's like, Beth is terrorising the Ocado driver, which is entirely plausible. And to be fair, she could be doing that on a number of different levels. And so I said to him, what's happened? What's happened? Now, some of you will be aware that we have 3 cats and our cats have slightly unusual names because it's funny and it makes us laugh. So we have 3 cats with slightly unusual names, and one of them had run out towards the Ocado van as it had pulled up, and Beth had obviously been very concerned for the well-being of this particular cat. So Beth opened the front door, and as the Ocado man was doing what they do, kind of getting out his trays and starting to bring his bags in, Beth's running towards him screaming, Brexit! 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 Which obviously is the name of our cat, but if you didn't know that, you may be forgiven for thinking that she had some kind of Nigel Farage-esque fervency for the future of our relationship with the European Union. Most definitely not the case. She's very anti-Brexit, but she was very keen to ensure that our Brexit was removed and placed safely back in the house. So if you're listening to this and you're the Ocado man who was terrorised by Beth last week, I'm truly very, very sorry. She is terrifying. I don't know what to say. So that was why you were slightly shortchanged this week. I'm recording earlier this week in the hope that nothing happens to interrupt it, but my house is a madhouse, so who knows? We'll see how we go. But it's a wild and woolly day, which I experienced firsthand. Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking and myself this morning went to watch Beth play her football match. Oh God, I've become such a football mum. I hate myself for becoming such a football mum. I'm not competitive. I'm not that kind of football mum. I actually don't care whether or not the team wins or loses, as long as they play well, and specifically as long as Beth plays well. I'm like overly invested completely in everything that she's doing. But she played brilliantly. The team played, in fact, both teams played brilliantly this morning. We're stood on this football pitch. And I don't know what it is about football pitches. Anybody who supports football teams or plays or is involved in any kinds of grassroots football, I'm sure will know. The weather in the rest of like the local area is, it's a bit blustery, but it's fine, and it's fairly low key. You get to the side of a football pitch, it's like you're on base camp at Everest. It's literally like wind blowing, leaves blowing everywhere, like clutching your your hats and your coats and your umbrellas, and yeah, it's inclement to say the least. But she played so well. I am the ultimate embarrassing soccer mum, aren't I? I'm like literally doing a podcast about how proud I am of my daughter playing football. Fucking hell, honestly, if me of 10 years ago could see the me of now, they would hang their head in shame. But they did so well. She was brilliant. She played so well. And then she just managed to just get her foot on the end of the ball to score the winning goal. So when I said to the kids, as I often do on a Saturday, what should I put in my podcast today? Beth went, put out my football. So there we go, Beth. If you listen to this, which clearly you won't, I'm very proud. I'm very proud of you and of all your teammates. They did amazingly well. And God love the people, the grown-ups who out of the goodness of their hearts get up to stand pitch sides with children they don't even know to coach their teams. I think there is such amazing volunteer work going on in this country, and thank goodness for the everyday heroes. And it's the everyday heroes which I think have restored my faith a little bit in the week this week. And some of you will have seen my blog post that I wrote last night, Friday night, which was a Mrs. May special in response to, I literally cannot fucking get my head around it, that we have a country run by people who think that it's okay to spend millions and billions of pounds on fucking bridges or expensed 5-star cuisine for them to eat in their nice chambers in Parliament, but not put aside the, I don't know, is it 20 million? It's not a huge amount, relatively speaking, that would be needed to make sure that kids who literally don't have enough food, who are hungry, will not go hungry during the school holidays. And it's, I don't know about anybody else, I felt a bit desensitised in 2020. I felt a little bit like, oh, fucking, here's another fucking thing. Come on, hit me while I'm down. Why don't you just keep them coming? But it's almost like this kind of breakthrough, and I'm sure there's some psychological thing behind us all needing channels for grief and all of that malarkey. But I have this fundamental belief in me that people will do the right thing. And I think where there's such undeniable evidence right in front of you that well-educated people, really well-educated people who think, and this is what really fucking gets me, right? People who think, when we think about the national curriculum, what's important to teach our kids, they're like, yeah, fronted adverbials, absolutely, top of the list. What 8-year-old child can't identify a fronted adverbial? Priorities. But yeah, they don't fucking think it's important to feed kids who are going hungry. And I just cannot get my head around it. And I think, like I say, I think it probably, I'm sure there was a channel for grief and all of that, but it's probably a bit indulgent really, but it's the first blog post that I've ever wrote, and I've actually cried while I was writing the blog post, not because of my writing, but because of the awfulness of the situation. And I underlined a bit about posting it, because I know there's been a lot out there about people quite rightly being outraged, and the brilliant work that Marcus Rashford has been doing. So I underlined a little bit about posting it, but in the end I felt that it's too important that if you're lucky enough to have a platform like I have, you have to use your voice to raise awareness of these things and shout out just what is wrong. I don't often think that there's such a thing as good and evil. I think the lines are far more more intricately drawn than that, and there's all the shades of grey, not the kinky kind. But this was just so black and white, monstrously wrong. I mean, I just, as I say, it's really, really stuck with me. So I posted that post, and then it was Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking. He said, well, you're clearly emotional about this. Why don't you then provide an outlet for people to share stuff that's happening? Because, of course, while the people in power may be doing heinous, terrible things, my God, the communities have stepped up, and I know that they shouldn't have to, particularly hospitality, which has been so battered by the pandemic anyway. There's businesses who are on their knees still saying, no, we're going to make sure that we support those kids who really need it. But the outpouring of love and support that came last night from little businesses, big businesses, community schemes, food banks, volunteers, schools staying open so that they could feed their vulnerable kids in the holiday. Oh God, honestly, it's those everyday heroes, and thank God for those everyday heroes. I'm so grateful that we have so many people out there who are going to fight for what is right. It feels very, very bleak at time, I think, in terms of how this country is run, certainly from my personal perspective. And it's not my intention to make this blog political, but I do think that choosing not to feed hungry children probably traverses all political parties. And as I say, it's a plain choice in my mind between right and wrong. So I am so grateful that there are so many people out there fighting for what I think is right. And as I say, it's hungry kids. How can you choose to make that choice? It's baffling. So if you're listening to this and you were one of the people who commented on the post last night or doing anything in your local community, thank you so much. If you're listening to this and you or your family are going to struggle during the holiday periods or indeed during term time, there's such an amazing resource in terms of all the comments that people have left on there, places that will help around the country. So please do go and have a look. Go and see if there's someone who will be able to help you. There's no judgment there. There, but for the grace of God, go any of us, right? None of us ever know when we're going to be in that position, and I've always taken a view that while I'm in a position fortunate enough to be able to support others, I should make sure I do that, because who knows when it might be my turn one day to need that support myself. So yeah, you guys, you turned around my Friday evening in the brightest of ways. There are good people out there, lots of good people, which is a great thing to see. So that kind of started off, I guess we're heading into half term here, and I know there are half terms all over the country. I feel I need to point that out, because whenever I write anything related to the school holidays, someone will always comment, and I know it's just done to raise awareness, but someone will always comment and say, well, it's not half term here. So just for the record, I recognise different half terms and different holidays in different parts of the country, and indeed different parts of the world. But here we have reached half term, which I'm sure for all our brilliant, amazing teachers and TAs and frontline education staff is a well-deserved sigh of relief. Unless you've got kids, I mean, in which case it's fucking hell, it's out of the frying pan into the fire, right? For the rest of you, I hope truly that you are going to get at least some time lying face down in a darkened room with a vat full of gin next to you. It is the least you deserve, because you've spent an entire half term in a school protected by no more than the magical force field, which our government keeps seeming to reassure us, it's all fine, everything's fine. It reminds me, the government's approach to COVID in schools reminds me a little bit of years and years ago. So it was before my two kids were born, and Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking and I went away with his two kids, my stepchildren, and we went up to see some family. I think it was Bristol we went to, and we stayed in a hotel. And the four of us, because his two kids were very little then, so we all stayed in one room. Anyway, fast asleep, middle of the night, about 2:00 in the morning, I wake up all of a sudden because the bedroom light has come on in the hotel room, and two random people have just walked into our room. And they obviously, like, clock us in the bed, go, oh my God, I'm so sorry, we must have the wrong room key, back out. We, no harm done, these things happen. We look at each other and laugh and double lock the door clearly, and then get back to sleep. So the next morning we went down to reception, and I'm not one to kick up a fuss for the sake of kicking up a fuss, and I recognise that people working in most professions are just trying to do a decent job. But I thought, well, I should point this out. It was a little bit inconvenient. I'm not necessarily expecting you to take a load of money off my bill, but probably an apology feels reasonable under the circumstances. So we went up to the checkout desk that you get when you check out of hotels. And there was a gentleman working behind the desk, and he said, "Hi, was everything all right with your stay?" And I said, "Yeah, no, it was all fine, very lovely. Just so you know, in the middle of the night, we were asleep, and another couple came into our room. They'd obviously been given the wrong key, and they came in the middle of the night, so obviously not ideal. Wanted to make you aware." At this point, like I say, I'm not expecting him to go and take a load of money off the bill or anything like that. All I'm expecting is "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. We'll absolutely look into it. Thanks so much for letting us know." That's what I'm expecting. So I say, this couple come into the room. It's not ideal. I thought you should know. He looked at me for a moment, this guy working behind the desk, and I will add at this point, because I think it's relevant for translation, English, definitely his first language, so there was not a language barrier here. He looks at me for a while, and he's like, "Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it." And I thought I'd misheard him, or I thought he'd misunderstood me, so I tried again. I said, "So, just so we're clear, in the middle of the night, two people came into our room." Yeah, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine." Well, I tried about 3 more times, and either he wasn't understanding me, or he thought I was asking for permission to have let random strangers into my room in the middle of that. I literally don't know what it was. But each time he's like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I feel that's a little bit akin to our government at the minute. COVID transmission in schools, don't worry about it. Don't worry, it's fine. PPE, should we have some PPE? Teaching frontline kids tend to be, pretty transmissible vectors of diseases. No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Well, how is it fine? The magical force field around all schools will protect you. Good, excellent, marvellous. Thank goodness the data shows that out, except it doesn't. Teachers, TAs, anybody working in frontline education, God, I love you. God, you do an amazing job. Thank you so much for everything you do for our children. Fucking hell, you deserve half term, unless, as I say, you've got kids, in which case you are probably as screwed as the rest of us. But yeah, it's half term, traditionally a time for a sigh of relief from teachers and a groan of despair from the rest of us. And I think school holidays definitely bring out the worst in competitive parenting. I definitely think, if I think back across my years of parenting and the rise of social media, I think during term time it's usually not too bad because the competitive parents are quite often as busy as the rest of us, or we're too busy to scroll through social media. But come half term, it seems to bring out the competitive parents in fucking force. And I swear to God, if I see the hashtag making memories one more time, I will probably not be held accountable for action. Making memories? We're all making fucking memories every fucking day. I'm making fucking memories right now of looking at my dining room table and go, why the fuck is there a half-used toilet roll in the middle of my dining room table? That is my half-term memory. Maybe I should put that on Instagram. There's probably a market, isn't there? Because you get all these photography companies, and nothing against photographers. I have photographers in my family and I've had some beautiful photos, but there's definitely a brand of photography, isn't it, which kind of really preys on the making memories thing. Lavender fields. You see a lot of photos in lavender fields or newborn babies curled up on fluffy rugs. In fact, to my shame, way back before social media, I think there's a photograph of me somewhere, aged about 6 months, curled up on a fucking fluffy rug. Thank goodness that's not captured for posterity on social media, is all I can say. But there's obviously a big market for these companies and people obviously like it. And let's be honest, it's nice for all of us we like to remember the good moments as opposed to the moments where everybody was screaming and crying and we wondered whether we could get through the next 2 minutes, let alone the next 2 weeks of the holiday period. But I wonder whether there's maybe a market for separate photography companies who aren't so much playing on the making memories market. Maybe they're playing on the making a fucking mess of things, or making a hash of it, or gosh, there's a whole range of hashtags you could have, isn't there? Making a mess of it, making the vaguest attempt to hang on to the scant glimpses of my sanity. If I ever set up a photography company, which I won't because I'm shit at photos, but that's what I'll call it. I remember when I had Jamie, and there was definitely a big thing back then about newborn photo shoots. And I'd done NCT classes, and a few of the NCT girls I'd done classes with had newborn photo shoots. I like to say, all power. If you love a newborn photo shoot, all power to you. And they're in these photos with their newborns, and they're looking like bright-eyed and bushy-tails. Well, they've got the fucking eyes open for a start off. I mean, I could barely stand upright when I'd had Jamie, like literally being able to stand upright and walk into the bathroom and brush my teeth. I felt like I was fucking Mo Farah. I felt I deserved some kind of Olympic medal. The thought of capturing me with Jamie as a newborn for posterity, no, thank you very much. That's definitely not for me. But if that's your bag, fair play. But yeah, I do think that half term can be a time of competitive parenting coming out to the fore, even if you don't intend to be a competitive parenting. I think there's something about, I've definitely found it recently, there's something about scrolling through other people's social media feeds that just makes you feel a bit shit. Does anybody else get that? Even when it's nice photos and you're kind of happy for them, you know, it's your friends and your family and you're happy and you're going, oh, you're having a lovely time. But part of you's going, fucking hell, well, we haven't done that this half term. We've barely got dressed this half term. People talk about doing day trips with their kids in half term. When my kids were little, if we could so much get everybody to have a clean pair of pants on, we were hashtag winning at life and hashtag making memories, never mind leaving the fucking house. In fact, I would probably need all of half term to get my children ready to leave the house. It would probably take us the entire week to get everybody dressed and shoes and teeth and all the rest of that jazz. So I just think there's a little element of be kind to you over half term, and you know, social media can be great. Obviously it's going to sound a bit hypocritical to me otherwise saying, oh no, never look at social media. I think social media can be brilliant for making people feel positive, but it can also be weirdly quite isolating too. So I think being kind to you is important. And obviously this half term you've got Halloween coming up as well, which, is it just me? Halloween never used to be a big thing. I know this because, and get me with my reference sources, I have been rewatching one of the great loves of my life, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. God love Buffy. I was introduced to Buffy at just the right time. So I think it came out when I was just finishing secondary school or maybe going into college, maybe going to sixth form college. So it came out just at the right time, completely grabbed me. Kick-ass female hero. Oh yeah, we love Buffy. And I've introduced my children to it and they're both thoroughly enjoying it, which is fantastic. But for those of you who are Buffy fans, and apologies to those of you who aren't, I promise I won't bang on about it for too long, there's a episode quite early on, a Halloween episode, where everybody gets dressed up. And I'm sure there's a million and one similar scenes in films from the US and TV shows in the US. But they all get dressed up and they walk around the neighbourhood doing trick-and-treating. And I can vaguely remember doing trick-and-treating when I was a kid. And, I mean, I lived in a village in the middle of fucking nowhere, which might have something to do with this. But literally, someone would like come around to your house and you'd scrape round in your mum's purse to see if there were a couple of old polos in there, or you'd go out and you'd be lucky if anybody answered the door at all. Whereas now it seems to have gone the way of, as I say, this episode in Buffy, and everybody's in costume and there's decorations everywhere, and we seem to have gone the same way over here, which, fair play, more power to you if Halloween is your thing. And to be fair, it does give rise for some comedy moments. My favourite, I will be the first to say, I'm not a fan of trick-or-treating because I don't like taking small children out in dark places at night. I fear for my lack of coordination, mine and Jamie's general ineptness and falling over, and also other hordes of small children running around screaming is not generally my idea of a good night out, but I've done it for the children, and friends of mine who are very into it, we've gone and done it previously. But there was a brilliant moment a couple of years ago, I think, and we were trick-or-treating near here down my friend V's road, and there's a big house there, and they really go all out for Halloween. So they'd gone the proper US style. There were decorations everywhere. There were like holographic projections on the front of the house. Kids were fucking loving it. I was thinking, my goodness me, I hope you're not an electricity meter. You're going to be absolutely screwed. God, isn't it great being a grown-up? You really know how to bring the fun to events. And so we were kind of walking up the drive and things, and they had this huge, great big sort of life-size model of like a killer surgeon. Is that a thing, a killer surgeon? Wouldn't you be struck off if you were a killer surgeon? Maybe he wasn't a killer surgeon. Well, whatever he was, he looked very realistic. He was wearing some kind of medical gear and had a load of blood around his mouth. Maybe he was a vampire surgeon, or you also don't want a vampire surgeon. I digress, as usual. So the kids are all running up and they're all very excited, and bear in mind my kids are a little bit older. That is important for this context of this story, in case you think this is a heinous thing to do. I literally laughed my arse off. They're walking out the drive and they're like, oh, look at the scary vampire dead surgeon thing type who's my flip, and and near him, that was where the pick and mix collections were. That was where the sweets. So all the kids, like a big horde, they all like approach this dummy. At which point he stretches out his arms, because of course it's not a dummy. It's the guy who lives in the house who is then also killing himself with laughter. So I'm a great fan of things which, you know, just remind children about the unpredictability of such events. Clearly, your children have to be a bit older for that to be funny, as opposed to something that's going to cause lifelong trauma. But yeah, Halloween. Where I was trying to go to with that sentence, before I started off on random anecdotes about vampire surgeons, there's an element to the plot, to the blog. It's not a blog. There's an element to the podcast that you probably didn't think you were going to get this week. But yeah, Halloween definitely encourages that whole approach to, you know, let's do crafting. Oh God, I fucking hate crafting. It's quite well known, I think, on the blog that I fucking hate crafting. I'm not a big fan of doing crafting by myself, but add in small children to crafting, and if there is a hell, it probably is a crafting room filled with toddlers and glitter. I cannot think of anything worse. I have a vague memory back when, again, my two were very small, and somebody had bought them moon sand. Now, moon sand and moon dough, I think that's the thing as well, make this sweeping claim that there's no mess. There's no mess. Now, anybody with half a mind and having spent any time with small children will know that this is bullshit. Of course there will be mess. It's small children and some kind of sandy, dusty type substance. But I was very sleep deprived. And on this particular morning, I think it might have been New Year, I was very hungover. And so when the children came downstairs at like 3 a.m. or whatever godforsaken time they used to get up and said, Mummy, let's open the moon sand. I was like, yeah, crack on. It says it makes no mess. Well, the Trades Description Act needs to have a word with the fucking manufacturers of moon dough and moon sand. Makes no mess my fucking arse. Literally, my house looked like a fucking moon dough factory. It was not a good moment. So if you love crafting and you want to do Halloween decorations and stuff and shove them on Instagram, you do that. But equally, if your idea of Halloween decorations is a little bit of extra ketchup on the plate with your kids' beige freezer roulette buffet for tea, I think that is just fine too. You do you, and that's so important, isn't it? That what works for you isn't going to work for somebody else. But definitely don't let the competitive parents get you down, and also don't beat yourself up as well for feeling like you're somehow doing your children a disservice. I think parents often do this, and I remember as a child. So I'm really lucky. My parents were both absolutely amazing. I'm so lucky to have them. And my mum was proper, full-on, hands-on. If there was crafting to do, we would craft. We would craft everything. I seem to remember covering an awful lot of pine cones with glitter. I have no idea why or what this was meant to represent, or maybe it was a weird cult thing. Shitloads of pine cones covered in glitter. My kids have never covered a pine cone in glitter. Am I depriving them? Maybe I'm depriving them. Answers in the comments, please. Have you ever covered a pine cone in glitter? What a weird thing to do. But yes, my mum did absolutely loads, and I loved it, and it was great, and it was brilliant. And my dad worked very long hours, so it was quite unusual for him to be left in charge of myself and my sister, but occasionally he was. And when he was, it's safe to say my mum and dad have two very different approaches to parenting, but actually as a kid both of them were brilliant. So we loved doing the cool crafty stuff with my mum, that was great, but we also loved the unpredictability of hanging out with my dad. And yeah, probably I get more of my parenting style from my dad than my mum, I would say. There was one very memorable weekend when I think my mum had to go away for work or something, so my dad was in charge. And my mum had left kind of like a strict meal plan and instructions to my dad on what we should have and everything. So she left all the ingredients for a roast dinner on the Sunday. My dad's an all right cook. He can rustle up a meal in the kitchen. So did we have a roast dinner? No, we did not. We had chicken and chips. Chips, might I add, which this was the absolute height of sophistication in the 1990s, cut into the shape of the initial letter of your name. Still one of my highlights ever. Chips in the letter of your name. That's where it's at. So we had chicken and chips for lunch, and then in the evening, I said to my dad, wonder what it'd be like if you only had icing sugar for tea. And he's a scientist. He's genuinely, that's his background. He said, let's find out. I'm telling you now that having only icing sugar for dinner is a really bad plan on so many levels. And both me and my dad now know all the reasons why. So an eclectic approach to parenting from my parents. But you know what? My memories are equally happy of both. So I think the point I'm trying to make is, don't sweat the small stuff. Your kids will be fine. Whether you're there, some of us are going to be working. I'm going to be working so much over half term, I doubt I'll even remember that I have children. So, some of us are going to be working flat out. Some of us are going to be out, key workers on the front line. Some of us will be off with our kids. And again, this guilt thing of, holidays, this amazing time. There's that awful fucking meme that comes out every summer. And literally, it makes me want to smash things. It's something along the lines of, you only have 18 summers with your children before they're grown up. Make the most of them. And I just think, oh my God, way to make people feel shit about themselves. I've taught loads on the blog about how we all find our time. And right now, do you know what? Holidays with my kids are brilliant because they're fun and they're a bit more independent and they understand that I have to get on and do things, and we have a brilliant time. But holidays with my kids when they were little, when I had most definitely not found my time, oh my goodness, every minute seemed to stretch and drag like an hour. And at the time I was like, oh God, this is because I'm a terrible parent. No, I wasn't a terrible parent. I just found parts of parenting really fucking hard, and that's okay. It's okay to find parenting hard. It's okay not to love it all of the time. I wish someone had told me that much earlier on in my parenting journey, and I will keep saying that to every parent I meet for as long as I possibly can, because I just think the moment I realised that I wasn't failing by not loving every single second, it transformed how I felt. And I think it probably transformed how I was as a parent for my kids as well, for the better. There will always be the competitive parents, right? You are always going to get Dave with his life-size model of Frankenstein's monster made out of organic vegetables, which he's probably grown up his own backside. There will always be the Daves of the world. And actually, do you know what? I don't want to sound down on the Daves of the world, because most of the Daves of the world are doing that because they really like making life-size monsters out of organic vegetables. Crack on, Dave. Crack on with your organic vegetables. But there are the odd Dave around there who does like to do it and shove it all over social media as a way of making people feel shit about themselves. Life is short. If there's social media feeds, and I include my own on this, there's social media feeds that make you feel shit, unfollow. Life is too short. You are doing an amazing job. You're not in competition with anybody else. You're really not. And that glossy exterior that you see is definitely not the reality for most of us. So just remember, there is a whole world behind that very pin-sized spot that you see of people's lives through social media. There is a whole reality behind that. 2020 is hard. Holiday periods in 2020 are hard. You do what you need to do to get through. I look back at photos from when my kids were really little, and I mean, there is a psychology, isn't there? Sometimes you put up a thing and you know, you've had your photo shoot in the lavender fields and everybody's kicked off all fucking day and lost their shit, lost their shoe, fallen face down into some mud, eaten some lavender. You've had to phone 111 to see whether or not they're going to die as a result of lavender, or you've done what I heard one parent did, which was eat some lavender herself to see if she felt ill, and if she didn't, probably her kid was going to be okay. But you know, the photo you post doesn't show any of that. It shows that brief 30-second period when the sun came from out from behind a cloud just before everybody shat themselves and everybody was briefly smiling, and that's the impression that you give. And I think it sometimes makes us feel better and makes us feel in control, but the reality can often be very different. So I am going to spend the rest of my Saturday afternoon. I could spend it tidying up my dining table, couldn't I? But then what would we have to talk about next week? You'd have no idea of the eclectic stuff on my table. It's also covered with a lot of nail stuff. I've got very, very into dip powder nails. They have transformed my life. I'll probably write a blog post about it at some point, because this is one of those life-affirming moments. All those of you who have no interest in nails are going, what the fuck is she banging on about? I'm telling you, this is transformational stuff. I fear that when I look back, because I'm a born optimist, I fear that I'll look back at 2020 at some point through rose-tinted glasses, forget we had a pandemic and go, but didn't my nails look amazing? That is exactly the kind of thing that I would do. So no, I won't tidy up my dining room table. So we can play guess the items on Catherine's dining room table again for next week. I am instead going to go and stand over Jamie for a little period of time. Jamie is like any 13-year-old boy, easily distracted. And the process of getting him to do his homework, it's a little bit like when you are doing guided reading with your child. Thank fuck we are past those days now. Jamie's quite a good reader against all the odds, despite not liking books very much. We had parents' evening this week, and his English teacher suggested that maybe one thing we could do to help Jamie even improve his reading even more was sit and do a few minutes of guided reading with him every day. Fuck that shit, I wanted to scream. I've done my time. I've done my guided reading time. I've done my years of CAT, what does it spell? Dinosaur. What the actual fuck? How is that even fucking possible? No, I am through my guided reading time. Obviously I didn't say that, because parents' evening, I've discovered it's a little bit like you're back in the classroom. The teachers are slightly terrifying, and you're just like, yes, of course, yes, we absolutely will do guided reading every single night, 100%, no problem at all. It's slightly terrifying being on the other side of things. But yeah, Jamie's approach to homework is a little bit like his approach to guided reading was. You're like, are you going to go and do your homework? Yeah. And to start with, I was quite naive as a parent. I was like, okay, so yes means he's going to go and do it. No. I'm going to go and do my homework means I'm going to walk up the stairs. I'll get a bit distracted, actually. I might feel hungry. I'll go back to the kitchen. I'll make 12 rounds of toast. I'll put the toast in the freezer. This is Jamie's new thing. He puts the fucking toast in the fucking freezer, which I wouldn't mind, because I get the thing of wanting cold toast. He forgets about it. It's not an exaggeration to say. I opened the freezer the other day to make some lunch. About 20 pieces of cold toast rained down on my head. Picked Jamie up from school. So your toast, Jamie? Oh yeah, I wondered where that went this morning. Oh, give me strength. So yeah, you're going to do your homework now. Well, you wander into the kitchen for a bit, make some toast, which you'll forget about. Go upstairs. I'll be like, are you doing your homework now? Yeah, I'm doing my homework. Go upstairs, sit and stare at a wall for a while, because who even knows why. Get distracted by some coloured string. Okay, Jamie, you doing your homework now? Yeah, no, I'm doing it. Well, that means he'll have turned on Teams, and then some more coloured string will have turned up, or he'll have looked out the window for a period of time, or he'll suddenly decide that he needs to go and spend 3 hours in the bathroom, because that's what teenage boys do. And about 2 hours later, I'll go upstairs and go, so all your homework's done? What homework? What homework? Give me strength. So yeah, I'm probably going to go and stand over Jamie for a few hours and ask him if he can do his homework, and then come downstairs to put away the Ocado shop, hopefully without Beth terrorising the Ocado driver this week, and have 20 pieces of cold toast fall on my head. Parenting, it is a joy. There is nothing about this in the parenting books. I'm going to rewrite a parenting book one day. Nobody mentions my freezer will be full of cold toast and my daughter will terrorise the Ocado man by screaming Brexit at him. Oh, the beautiful unpredictability of life. Anyway, look after yourselves. Stay safe. Please be kind to yourselves. As I say, I know it's a tough time for everybody and I know half term can be fraught at the best of times, particularly so in a pandemic. Look after yourselves. Stay safe and I will see you all next week. Take care. Lots of love. Bye bye.